Good morning. Good morning, everyone. We're going to get started, so if you can grab coffee and food and find your table. If you don't know what table you're at, it's on your name tag. And all the tables have a nice number on them.
I guess I'm starting. Sarah told me to do it. Good morning. I'm going to do that again. Good morning, everyone. Thank you. My name is Dudley Voigt, and I am the board chair of Forecast Public Arts. Oh, that's nice. Thank you. Well, that's the easiest thing I've ever done to get applause. Geez. Forecast has been an organization that has supported me throughout my career. It's a place that I continually go to learn and to grow, to find camaraderie, and to really understand the work. So I am honored to start our day today with this land acknowledgement. Good morning. You are on Native land. We respectfully acknowledge the sacred land upon which this event is taking place today. This is the traditional homeland of the Dakota Oyate, unfairly ceded in the treaties of 1837 and 1851, who stewarded it for millennia. In fact, we are just blocks from Owamiyami, which is the Dakota name for St. Anthony Falls and is the sacred site of peace and well-being for the Dakota and Anishinaabe people. Beside me is a Dakota land map created by local artist Marlena Miles, a self-taught Spirit Lake, Dakota Mohegan Muskogee artist located in St. Paul, Minnesota. We invite you to learn more about the true history of this land and to search out the wisdom and stories of the Dakota, Ojibwe, and other Native peoples still here. I'm honored to introduce two incredible artists and grantees of Forecast who are here to share their work and stories. Please welcome Missy Whiteman, Northern Arapaho and Kickapoo Nations interdisciplinary publics artist, producer, and filmmaker, and Thomasina TopBear, Santee Dakota and Oglala Lakota Nations.
Ha Madakiapi, Thomasina Wakantuya, Mato Amachiapi. Hello, my relatives. My name is Thomasina TopBear. I am a local Twin Cities artist from the Santee Dakota and Oglala Lakota Nations. I come here today with a good heart, and I'd like to thank everyone at Forecast for inviting us together on this beautiful morning the Creator gave us. Okay, and I like to usually start off that I'm a visual artist and not a professional public speaker, so bear with me this morning. I have been an artist for as long as I can remember, from scribbling on my mother's walls to scribbling on the sides of buildings throughout the country. I specialize in creating large-scale murals and outdoor collective art projects. I am a board member of Few and Far Women, an all-female identifying. Oh, I'm so sorry. An all-female identifying skateboard, street art, and graffiti crew. I am also co-founder of City Mischief Murals alongside Joyce Spica. We are a BIPOC artist collective centered on healing through the arts, with an emphasis of empowering the next generation. As I get older and make my way on my journey, I have found that my desire to create art inspired by my Oceti Shakaman culture has been my main focus. I created this morning star as part of the chromosome mural in which Forecast was a partner of, titled Unchi Maka, meaning Grandmother Earth. The morning star symbolizes hope and guidance. It is our connection to our ancestors and all things. When I was painting this, I met new Oceti Shakaman relatives that would stop and share their delight in seeing something that they identified with. Having these visual platforms to create this cultural messaging and designs on our stolen ancestral homelands is very important and builds positive relationships between our communities. It creates much needed healing that we are still missing. I will end this by saying I applaud Forecast in their effort to build and continue learning on how to strengthen their organization's relationship with Indigenous communities. I encourage more organizations to do the same. I hope in the future that there will be continued support for Native artists in a way that gives creative control, along with switching up the way that these funding opportunities are administered to make it more community-led and accessible. Well, thank you for your time, and thank you again to Forecast for inviting us all together. And it's been my honor to share a little piece of my story with you. Wopa de Tanka. Thank you. Oh, thank you. You're really good.
I'm gonna move this up here. Those Hinana A, Nina Ina A, Missy Whiteman. I belong to the Northern Arapaho and Kickapoo Nations. I want to first of all say welcome everyone, and thank you for being here with me this morning, and all of us as we are here to support and honor the work of Teresa and Forecast and all the people that are involved with public art in the organization and also throughout the Twin Cities, especially the artists. One of the things that I wanted to say and to share is that I've known Teresa for a long time. We go way back to when my son was a baby and she was at Intermedia. The legacy before me is my father, or was my father, Ernest Whiteman, who was a visual artist here in the Twin Cities. And he was her mentor back when she was an intern at Intermedia Arts. And I feel like that was the seed that planted that relationship with us, but also always including Native and Indigenous people in this work. I'm so proud to stand with Forecast today because of the work that they're doing right now, as far as research, as far as looking into policies that are federal mandates that protect our people's work, our people's art, and continues that legacy and the sacredness and practice of creation. So I want to acknowledge that first of all. I also want to acknowledge the unification of all people. If we look at the mural, if you have a chance to go and visit it, it was with Chromosome Angela. Amazing, just amazing. Thank you so much for all the lessons and the teachings and the blessings that this project gave to all of us. This was something that grew from like 100 feet to 200 feet. I didn't measure, but until the end. Thomasina, sharing the space. Thomasina, there's another image with the moon, with her on there painting the moon, because I wanted her to be a part of this as women and as life givers. This is my daughter in the center, Molly. So she represents missing and murdered and the future generations, because we're always acknowledging our ancestors, our history, our past, and moving forward. And the other artists that were a part of this as well are also Native artists to Focus, Oppose, and Guillermo as well, who's an Indigenous artist from Mexico. For me, this is a prayer. For me, so many hands went into this. And for me, this is what this is about, is a unification of all people through the arts. So I want to say thank you for your time. And again, the VR code's here. If you want to just take a picture of it and you could scan it later. This is in beta. So this is something that we're looking at AR, VR. How do we move it into public art? Also, how do we make it accessible to all people who maybe can't see the mural? So I'll be back there too if you need instructions on how to use it. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Next up, we have a video coming from Andrea Jenkins, who's the Minneapolis City Council president.
Good morning, Forecast community in Minneapolis and all online from around the country. I wish I could be there with you today. My name is Andrea Jenkins, and I am the president of the Minneapolis City Council. I represent Ward 8. I'm a practicing artist, poet, and writer. And I'm a former Forecast board member. Last year, Forecast reached out to me to share my own thoughts and experiences in a piece of writing for their community safety issue Book Forward, their new digital publication. And I decided to write about my own experiences in my own ward, which includes George Floyd Square. The piece is called How Artists Can Help Us Reimagine Community Safety. Let us never forget that on May 25th, 2020, the entire world bore witness to the public lynching of unarmed black man, George Floyd, through the eyes of citizen journalist Darnella Frazier, who was awarded a Pulitzer Prize special citation for courageously reporting. During the days of unrest that followed, the art that proliferated throughout the city expressed anger, frustration, resolve, and a desire for revolution. But the art also called for love, peace, hope, and justice. The emerging symbols and images served as a daily reminder that change must come quickly. It spurred folks to action and brought attention to one of the many critical issues of our time, the deep racism embedded in our public safety system. Because of the work of these artists, the images they created and shared and still share, a movement grew across the globe and public art was up front, in your face. The power of public art could never be questioned again. We changed the world. Today in Minneapolis, we are working with artists to help us see new ways of transforming public safety and public systems. Through efforts like the city's Truth and Reconciliation Work Group, we began the process of developing ongoing analysis, advice, policy implementations to create initiatives that recalibrate the unbalanced wealth equation that currently holds down marginalized communities. Artists can and will help us imagine and implement this transformative vision. I encourage you to support, forecast, and help them create opportunities for artists like myself and many others to play a vital role in tackling the most pressing issues of our time. I can tell you from experience that they live and breathe their mission to advance justice, health, and human dignity through public art. Thank you for being an engaged part of this community, and please enjoy today's event and a beautiful spring day in Minneapolis.
Good morning. Oh, I think we can do better than that. Good morning. Awesome. Thank you. Oh, there's me. So my name's Teresa Sweetland, and I'm the Executive Director of Forecast Public Art. And I'm incredibly happy to see all of you today. It is a wonderful room. You all are looking good. And thank you to everyone online. We have a great group of people joining us virtually, which is just a wonderful chance for us to connect with people all over the world. So I want to thank my good friend, Missy Whiteman, whose father, an artist, Ernie Whiteman, was a life-changing mentor to me. And thank you, Thomasina TopBear, for those incredible words, and Council President Jenkins for those moving words to really, I think, set a tone and remind us why we're here. It's been 3 years since we've been in this room together. That's a long time. I've missed so many of you, meeting some people for the first time that I've been working with for years online. All the hugs and handshakes is just wonderful this morning. And I want to thank you all for being here. We've been through some incredible and really challenging circumstances, and I want to just give yourself a round of applause for being here. Thank you. Thank you to all of you for getting us through this time. So how many of you are here learning about Forecast for the first time? Raise of hands. Awesome. Or new to our work. And join in the chat online. Let us know if you're also new to our work. So if you're not too familiar with us, we are one of a very small handful of public art organizations in the world. And we've been around for over 40 years, founded by Jack Becker, who's here with us. Yay, Jack. And we do three main things. We support artists who want to work in public. We partner with others who want to work with artists, and we provide tools, knowledge, and recommendations to set the conditions for more equitable places. And we have been incredibly busy these last 3 years, and I wish I could share everything we're doing and talk about all of you, but we thankfully have some amazing speakers coming up after me that are going to talk about the projects we have going on right now. So I want to just take us back to 2019. Y'all remember 2019? Seems like a long time ago. Forecast was working on a new strategic plan guided by the voices of artists and communities, and it was a great process. It was engaging. We were really in deep, thoughtful conversations about the state of our world. about anti-racism, about human rights, and how public art and artists could lead the way in imagining a new world. And so we wrote this new plan with this new mission and new vision and updated our values, and we adopted this 200-page document setting this course with our stake in the ground to advance three things: justice, health, and human dignity through public art. And it was 2019, so we're thinking we're forging ahead, let's do this. And then, of course, we didn't know what was coming in March 2020. And the following months for all of us were truly humbling, facing both the global COVID-19 pandemic and the murder of George Floyd here in our own community in Minneapolis, and the worldwide call to address systemic racism and the fight to preserve our democracy. And all at once, almost overnight, 94% of artists were unemployed. And artists and communities were facing financial loss, but also the social and physical and emotional devastation that we know. And BIPOC artists were disproportionately impacted by this. And across the country, monuments of Christopher Columbus and Jefferson Davis and others were being toppled, an act of righteous anger against the atrocities waged against Black, Brown, and Indigenous communities for far too long. And some people woke up. They'd been working inside these systems, and they started asking, what do we do? How do we listen? How do we make change? And they called for help. And in this time of isolation and fear and divisiveness, public art proved more essential than any other time in our history. Our streets became our galleries. Our parks became our theaters. Our sidewalks became our music venues, and our protests became our poetry readings. And artists' voices rose above all the media noise, an outcry in public to bring attention to calls for justice, for representation, for recognition. And we knew that artists during this time were not just wanting to make art. They were running to roll up their sleeves and be part of solving these crises. And so we responded quickly without delays to keep our work going, keep our team working, to adapt and support public artists and our partners here in Minnesota and around the country. And with this timely and really relevant plan, a new mission, new programs to address these calls for action, we also had the right people at our table. We'd done the work over years, training and bringing in a highly diverse and highly experienced team, ready to adapt and take risks, to try new things, to drive the change we all wanted to see in the world. And many of those team members are here today. I'd love you to just stand up for us and we could recognize you or raise your hand. Thank you to the Forecast team. And we're going to hear from some of them today. And because of this move to virtual work, we were able to rapidly expand our training and consulting work nationally, actually making it more accessible to more people. And our team is now helping public and private partners do everything from find artists to create public art master plans to lead community engagement efforts. And now we're working in 30 new communities across the country, from Washington, D.C. to San Francisco, Waco, Texas, to Red Wing, Minnesota, and many, many more places. And we transitioned our print magazine, if you're a fan of Public Art Review, thank you to Karen Olson for helping with this transition, to a digital one called Forward. And this publication is laser focused on giving people outside of the arts, from housing and transportation and health, concrete examples of how artists can be getting to work in communities and work inside systems to make change. And even with all this great work, we know that change does not happen without systems also changing. And so we launched our Change Lab and are funding fellowships and new research in racial justice and Indigenous visibility to make concrete examples for policy change in public art around the country. Because you may not know this, but there are over 700 public art programs in the country and growing every day. And they have room for improvement when it comes to representation and when it comes to anti-racism work. And that's a lot of change ahead of us at Forecast. And finally, we started a special fund called the Public Art for Racial Justice Fund to ensure that will and not resources will drive our decisions to bring urgent racial justice work to public art every day. So under the most globally challenging circumstances, Forecast team stepped up and artists stepped up again and again. And right now, we're working with cities and mayors, transportation planners, housing developers, and more, and the stakes could not be higher. I received a call from one of our team members the other day who's working with a major city in the US, and that city hired us to help them with a plan on what to do with the future of the city's monuments, all of them. And they expected, honestly, to take a few months to create some new language, to draft some new policies, and outline what monuments would stay and go. And our role as a partner to them is to facilitate the community conversations with a committee of people who've been working towards this for decades and have a stake in whose stories are told. And what's happening in that room is that people are in the room, not sculptures or monuments, but people and their stories and their ancestors' stories and their children's futures. And trauma is in the room and pain is on the table. And we're working now in environments where by talking about who's represented in public art and whose stories are not represented in public art, healing and reconciliation is on the table through the decisions we recommend and people make about the future of public art. So our team member was telling me, this is hard, this is emotional work. We need more people. We need more time, we need more training. We need trauma-informed facilitation training. We need the support. We need to hold this space and we need to do it right because the stakes are high. So the pressure's on and the need is there. We actually have more calls for our work and our help than we can take on right now across the country. And we're committed. When the media stops talking about this and everyone moves on, we are there to help keep this movement moving forward every day. And so I'm asking you for your support in helping make this movement and this momentum continue forward. We've learned so much and we continue to learn and listen. And in the next 3 years, we're going to be focusing on deeper listening, inviting more voices to the public art table. And yes, we're planning a little disruption for some impactful policy change. So I'm excited to share that over the next 3 years, Forecast will be kicking off a nationwide listening tour, listening within Black, Brown, and Indigenous communities about what they want in the future of public art. We'll be expanding our access to public art funding and opportunities nationally by taking our Making It Public training to more artists in more communities. And we'll grow our Racial Justice Fund for public art, which allows us to support pro bono projects where racial justice is the outcome. And because all movements for change need information to fuel them, we will grow our Change Lab, funding more research and fellowships focused on the most vital issues of our time, including climate change, housing, and more. And we're going to increase our team, hiring people who have the passion and the know-how to hit the ground running on this important work. So we can't do this without you. If you feel inspired and passionate about this work, we need your investment to realize this vision. And so I'm asking you to please be a part of this work with us. Help us create a future where people feel like a sense of belonging and artists are leading the way. So let's reimagine this world together. Thank you so much. So we have some awesome speakers coming up, and I'm glad I don't have to follow them. And they're going to be telling some stories about forecast work in the community. And we're going to start with Alejandra Pelinka from the City of Bloomington and Tricia Heuring from the forecast team. Thank you, Ali and Tricia. The stage is yours.
Hi, everyone. So I want to kick this off quickly and just say that Creative Placemaking in Bloomington, it's an initiative of the City of Bloomington and our nonprofit partner Artistry. And this work was kicked off with the development of a South Loop Creative Placemaking plan. The South Loop District, if you're unfamiliar, is located on the most eastern kind of wedge of Bloomington, and it's probably best known for Mall of America, but it also includes one of 8 urban wildlife refuges in the country, has mix of residential areas, businesses, corporate headquarters. It's adjacent to the airport and has 4 light rail stops, which benefits the vision of developing the district into a more walkable, mixed-use, transit-oriented development. So over the years in conversations with neighborhood residents and workers, we kept getting consistent feedback that they wanted to see more points of interest. They wanted more places to walk to. And so our Creative Placemaking Commission identified a very long wall surrounding an Excel substation wall. And it faced American Boulevard, which is a really busy road, and 30th Avenue, which will eventually face a new residential complex and a grocery store. The wall ended up being about 752 feet long and about 12 feet tall along the length of the wall. And to make this happen, we did work with multiple partners on this project, including Xcel Energy, McGough, and Metro Transit. And it was very valuable to have the city navigate those partnerships and those contracts. We also wanted to approach this mural commissioning process differently. So we wanted to work with a curator to consider the entire length of the wall, work with multiple artists, but keep a cohesive design. And this part of Bloomington is especially diverse, so it was really important for us to work with BIPOC artists who create the art that this community could identify with. We're also very interested in supporting emerging curators and artists, and knowing that this was a large-scale project that could potentially support great career growth. So we decided to reach out to Forecast Public Art because we knew that they had extensive connections with the local artist community. We trusted them to identify 3 artist curator finalists and manage the panel process. And we also wanted to make sure, importantly, that they'd be able to mentor or support the selected curator throughout the entire process. So I'll hand it over to Tricia.
So I worked as the forecast consultant on the project with Ale, and I was really excited about this project just because it was a super long wall, and so there's not a lot of wall spaces like that you have that much space to reinvent. And in my work as a consultant with Forecast, I'm always interested in dismantling processes and thinking about who gets access to the public art projects. And so this one was an amazing project because the partner was from the beginning committed to equity and thinking about what would it mean to get artists of color to be able to access a project like this. So first and foremost, we had to realize that a wall space like this with a budget this large and the requirements of the Excel station, insurance, navigating city contracts, all of those different layers were going to make it really difficult for an emerging BIPOC artist to actually access. So the idea and the collaboration was to start with Forecast as the consultant for Ale and Bloomington, and then switch to being the consultant for the artists that were selected for the project. So in the first half, we kind of worked with the City of Bloomington and Creative Placemaking to figure out how to facilitate the process. And then once the artists were selected, I worked very closely with the artists supporting them. So they had access to forecasts, lawyers, and insurance information. And in the end, this ended up being the largest project for Washi, a collective with Christina, Tico, and Ka, who ended up just really executing the most beautiful community-led mural in which they selected the artists, they curated the wall, and Forecast and Creative Placemaking in Bloomington really put a lot of trust in them. And I think it's important that if you just set up a support structure for trust, artists of color will end up shining and coming through.
So working with Forecast was obviously very beneficial for us, but it was also very beneficial for the curator and the artist as well. Oishi Creative and the artists did an incredible job, aesthetically, of course, but also very importantly, sharing their stories and their unique perspectives. Part of this project also involved working with Oishi Creative to coordinate a sunset block party to celebrate the completion of the mural. And that event included food, music, activities, and art installations. And we really encouraged Oishi Creative to select and coordinate all of the components of the event, which they're experts at anyway. And then they were very intentional about every component. The event was a huge success. People shared with me it felt really authentic, welcoming, and fun. So as Tricia mentioned, we think that the recurring theme and the overarching theme here is really to trust artists and to let them lead. And our role is really to set up parameters to support them throughout the process. So I encourage you to visit our website and read through the artist statements to know more about the mural. And thanks again to Forecast, Tricia, and Oishi Creative, and all of the artists. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. That was beautiful. I'm happy to introduce our next speaker, Councilmember Mitra Jalali from St. Paul. Please give Mitra a round of applause.
Good morning, everyone. I've never been to the machine shop, so this is beautiful. It's so nice to see you all. I'm also a short person, so I'm making sure that this works for me. I'm so thankful to be here, and I was just kind of doing a body scan as I was sitting in the audience, because we're going and living through this time where we're expected to rush from thing to thing. We're expected to check out of our emotions to make whatever needs to happen that day happen. And this is a space where, as we were recognizing all of the challenges that our community has lived through in the last 2 years alone, let alone 4 years since I've been an elected official, I just felt compelled to say that's really harmful to keep pushing through. And what I'm grateful for in just seeing the art that I've gotten to support and that Forecast is really helming and helping create across our community is that art is playing a role in people's healing as well, in recognizing what is going on, what we've been asked to live through, the conditions that too many people in our community have been asked to endure for far too long. And so I just want to start with some gratitude. Forecast is guiding change in St. Paul. I know this because I am a councilwoman in St. Paul, also guiding change, and I see their work everywhere. One of the amazing leaders that just spoke, Tricia, is helping a multi-faceted team of people help redesign a new library in my ward, in the Midway, which is actually a notable location because the Midway in St. Paul is also one of the areas that is facing kind of a triple emergency, the themes of which you've heard about today. We are facing a crisis of racism like everywhere else. We are living through the pandemic. And then there's an economic crisis and pressures on the neighborhood, even as there's also aspiration and hope. And I do know that public art has played and will play a role in continuing to define a very important part of our Twin Cities. And that was also, like many other parts of our community, rocked by a righteous civil unrest that was also painful, that was difficult. And I've spent a lot of my time as a councilwoman rebuilding. And as I have helped with my community to lead that work, I have seen the whole way where Forecast has been, where they continue to be. They have been really present in our community in so many ways, and I want to share just a lot of different projects that they've done that have made a huge impact in St. Paul. The Joyful World Mural Park at the State Fair, which is also part of, it's just adjacent to the part of the community that I represent. The Larry Cohen Memorial on the plaza on our City Hall. So when I go in, as I will later today, to take votes and make decisions about our community, we are reminded of our history and our obligation to our community. The Under the Surface project with Angela Two Stars, this is at the St. Paul Port Authority's new building. Artist installations inside the Rondo Community Library. I'm just gonna This thing is just falling on me, I'm sorry. By Seitu Jones. There's an award-winning Rice Street Visioning project, which you'll get to hear more about. And one of my favorite projects that has been a beacon in our community for years is a Morning Glory flower. And it's a beautiful public art sculpture, and it's by the Planned Parenthood, which is at Vandalia and University. Maybe you've driven by it a million times, maybe you visited it, maybe you know someone who has. And that comes into focus for me this week because I was asked to speak at a rally for abortion rights on Saturday because our bodily autonomy is under attack, and it is at that location, and that piece of art is going to be there, and it's going to be part of witnessing the righteous anger that so many people are feeling right now on this, in this dark new chapter in our country with the news coming out of the Supreme Court. Personally, I'm furious. I've never been more determined, and I also see shining through in the art of Forecast the beauty and belief in our communities that also knows that anger, shares it because it's rooted in what we believe has to be true for our cities, and is coming out in a powerful way to speak to what needs to happen. And the last project that's near and dear to my heart that I am so grateful for Forecast leadership on that really embodies this is, to me, the Chromosome Mural Festival, which is in my ward. I'm so proud to have been able to support Chromosome through multiple years now with Cultural Star funding, which is basically a funding source the City of St. Paul makes available to help key projects happen. Really taking in so many artists saying a lot of these funding sources are not accessible. That is so real, and something that I think about in my role as a public official, trying to make and spur support for projects like this. And we have, with thanks to Forecast and the many, many groups like Creative Enterprise Zone, other amazing conveners in the neighborhood, we have 38 new murals in the part of the community that I represent, and they're all around the landscape telling the story of our Twin Cities, St. Paul and Minnesota. Vast majority local artists, vast majority BIPOC artists. It's just something that's not really like anywhere else in the state. I don't know that there's anywhere else really like that in the state, and I'm very happy to be proven wrong because that would be great. But I'm also very happy to be right because I'm the councilwoman for this neighborhood, and you bet I'm proud of it. So I want to say thank you to all the artists, to Forecast for what you do. So grateful to be here and be a part of shaping this with you, and thank you for your time today to support this amazing organization. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I'm very happy to introduce our next speaker, James Curry, who's going to speak about a really powerful story about his family. So, James, come on up.
Good morning. I thought I might go, let's see. Yeah, I'm part of a nonprofit called br4r.org that is excavating Hastings Brown history. And before I forget, thank you, Teresa, Tricia, Jen, and Jack. Let's see, what do we have? I thought I'd give a little context. These are my ancestors in Hastings. This is like one of those family slideshows. Here is a roughly 2008 reunion of the descendants of that family, plus some others. There I am in the middle, my wife, pops, and brothers and daughter. So in Hastings, we've got a man named John Wallace, a fugitive slave from Virginia, who comes there in 1857, I believe. No, I'm wrong, after the Civil War, 1864, 65. We've got a couple Wallace and Curry daughters that get to know each other at Hastings High School. We've got Curry offspring, 5 boys and 5 girls, as well as another couple Wallaces. So really, there's two foundational families in Hastings, including Florence, who was the valedictorian, went to Hampton Institute and Tuskegee. So with that kind of background, they wanted a place of their own, a church. So a pastor from Iowa was commissioned by the African Methodist Episcopal Association to start one. And a year into it, they were able to build it. I sort of jumped the gun there. But 15 years later, it was burned down. So I was interested, along with this other group, or these group members, in excavating that history. I actually didn't know that history of it being destroyed by arson. So after that, there was, so if the arson occurred in 2007, there was a, probably 10 years later, a rise in the Klan in a neighboring town, Nininger. So with that kind of background and those events, there was an exodus of the citizens who, three of the Curry boys joined World War I, or volunteered to fight in World War I. And the rest of the family moved to South Minneapolis. And with that, kind of became some of those foundational families of South Minneapolis in the 20s. Scattered up and down 4th and 5th. If anybody knows the corridor. And some of those little highlights are offspring of the Currys. Was her dad was James Howard Curry. Katie's maiden name is Curry, if you're familiar with Katie McWatt, and Barry. And they named an avenue after her, if you didn't know that. And now I feel like I'm just sort of boasting about family. This is Mary May Curry, who is the grandmother of whoops, I'm sorry, I went too fast. Maybe I can go back. Yeah, of Brother Michael Collins. He was the president of De La Salle, and his mother and father there. So back to the church. Why did the problem or challenge or opportunity we were trying to solve was, can we excavate this history in all its ugliness in that town, and I guess think about commemorating it. And when we had a Zoom with Forecast, I asked a question that I thought was sort of pertinent. You know, this is an ugly, shameful incident that occurred. How do we approach community buy-in? And someone in the Forecast said, who cares if they buy in or not, which I thought was kind of cool. So a little bit of epilogue. My dad occasionally went out to Hastings because evidently we have plots there. I had never made the trip. And students themselves had occasionally, like every Black History Month, looked into their racial history, and actually produced some interesting work and articles. So why did we ask Forecast for help? Strategizing. That's a Bushism. Who I found out is a relation. There's a groan, that's funny. But really, the help and service and partnership that Forecast provided, and this was our little ragtag group, a descendant of a Wallace, myself, and a communist, some hippies, a historian, and I mean that in the best sense of the word. And that's our little logo. So what Forecast was able to provide were all these standard, well, not standard, above and beyond the pro bono stuff, the you know, all the intangibles really, and we weren't even a nonprofit then. And I find we just had a speaker out from Boston, Chad Montry. He wrote a book called Whiteness in Plain View, and I happened to, you know, start a friendship with him, and we went to these events. And after he would speak about, you know, Edina or Hastings and racial exclusion, people were kind of left with the question of what to do next. And I think the little template may be that kind of ragtag group forming some nonprofit at some point, and, you know, starting to excavate these stories and just being there and incorporating community. And it seems like the reckoning is petering out simply because people don't know who to align with. But anyways, Forecast was a godsend. And what impact did all that help have on our community? Well, that remains to be seen. But we did recently get some funding, so we're going to start the charrette mode with some artists. And what else do we have? I believe if Hastings, we've got some allies on city council, and things are looking up in a sense. And I think that they may realize that transparency with accountability leads to trust. And I don't know if that's just sort of a cliche or a pat kind of statement, but I would look at a town that excavates its history, acknowledges it as, you know, woke, for lack of a better word. I mean, they're really trying to do something in baby steps. And there's mom and dad. So I think maybe that would also lead to racial harmony, some kind of utopia that we all hope for. And the burning of the church didn't stop us. There's an AME in South Minneapolis that was, I think, removed because of eminent domain. It started out on 94. They built another one. This is basically that foundational community of South Minneapolis in one congregation. And so enough with family photos. I thought I've got dry mouth big time. I thought I'd show a slide if Sarah was able to put it in. We came up with an idea of a graphic novelization of the story as an asset that can be sold or put in comic book form to appeal to all ages. But yeah, I'm not sure if we got it. But thank you. That's the short rambling story. But God bless Forecast and everyone here. Thank you.
Thank you, James. We can't wait to see what happens with that project in Hastings. I hope you follow it as they continue to build support for telling that story and telling that family's history. So I'm happy to introduce Haila Maze and Hawona Sullivan Janzen, who've worked with us, worked together for a number of years on a Rice Street project. Come on up.
Thank you. I think we're gonna be tag teaming it, so try to put this between us.
And we've got a timer here.
We are here to talk about the Rice Street Visiting Study. The genesis of this was an effort by the Ramsey County to think differently about the corridor of Rice Street between Wheelock and Pennsylvania and St. Paul. That's the North End and Frogtown neighborhoods for those of you who know the area. Kudos to them for thinking, doing the studies the same way we always do them doesn't always work well. We want to think differently and try something new. When we approached this project, we were delighted to bring with us for our friends at Formula, who I don't see anyone here, but I know they're friends of Forecast as well, and of course Forecast, because we knew if we wanted to do different, artists are a way to go. So the rest of this presentation is about embracing the idea of what is a holistic look for the corridor. What does a healthy corridor look like, and what does the bringing artists into the process mean for it? Our first, and I'm turning it over to you.
So we came up with some descriptors for what we thought a project like this happening during the time that it's happening would be. And so I'm going to read the list for you, and then you can follow along as each of us address the points. The work needed to be uplifting. It needed to be accessible. It needed to be relevant. It needed to be affirming, connecting, renewing, and resilient. So I'm fortunate enough to be born of the world's most amazing, optimistic mother and a father who is a therapist. And so at the beginning of the pandemic, when he found out I was still working and we were working on Rice Street, the first thing he said to me was, "Give the people hope." And so as we were thinking about this project, we knew that was something that we needed to do. The activities that we put together needed to be uplifting, which is a really difficult thing to do when everyone is panicking. We hired a team of local artists. In fact, we interviewed them on the last day before the lockdown occurred. We hired Melvin Giles, Krista Bayer, Kyle Voigtlander, and Melissa Vang, all artists who either currently lived or had lived for quite some time and practiced in that community.
The process also needed to be accessible. That means a lot of things to a lot of people. It can mean just making sure things are in the right languages and the right access. But for us, it meant going beyond, not just meeting the minimum requirements, but having something that people could approach, something that people could find real and be part of. We produced a lot of technical maps and documents like that, but who would pick up one of those when instead you could have this really cool bandana that's artist design, again, making it relevant and connecting where people are.
So what does it mean to be relevant? When you just lost your job, you can't pay your rent or your mortgage, you're worried about dying, you're worried about groceries, you're worried about your own and the mental health of everyone that you care about, and you're worried about what's going to happen when the pandemic is finally over. And then you see an adorable artist with a green apron on the sidewalk in front of a neighborhood bodega asking you if you have opinions about the future of Rice Street. How do you do that work well? Why did we bother to try? The artists sat together trying to figure it all out. And what they said was, let's make it feel generous. Let's make it feel like not only do we want to know what people care about, but that there will be a future to plan for.
In line with that, we also wanted a process that was affirming. One thing I've realized in our work is often people do not feel heard. People do not feel that they're important or seen as important. People do not feel validated. We can't fix it overnight, but we can create opportunities for people to connect, be center stage for a little bit, and to feel a sense of meaning, and to make sure that we're connecting that work back to what we're trying to achieve.
Connectivity. We got an old golf cart, and with the help of Wit Siasoko, the artist painted it in bright colors and drove it around the neighborhood, carrying Rice Street activity books that the team had designed, giving away postcards asking people for their opinion, and carrying around disposable versions of chalkboards inspired by Wing Young Huey's work, and asked people to tell us what they wanted to be sure was a part of the future of Rice Street. It worked. People started to look for us. They would see us at the bus stop waiting to go home and say, "Hey, could you quickly take my picture?" People cared. They started to respond to our emails. People started to seek us out. We hosted free ice cream socials outside. We gave away coupons for the neighborhood grocery stores. We invited people to online focus groups and a public weaving session that was simply a chance for people to talk and for us to listen.
Speaking of weaving, here's some of the excellent work that was done as part of this project. The word here is renewed, and for us that means that this is a process that's different because it needs to be different. The communities, there's a lot of really well-intentioned people like me who show up in these communities every day and are like, good news, here to help you. And I know we all mean well, but often it can layer on top of layer in terms of distrust and disconnect between what is said and what is promised. Again, we're not going to fix the world overnight, but we want a different approach that really shows we're taking this seriously, we're centering this, we're doing our best, and really using artists to lead the way in finding new, winsome, and meaningful ways to do that.
So, what does it mean to be resilient in the face of constant change? What does it mean to be resilient in the face of racial issues, death, loss, concern, hopelessness? It means every day that team of artists, together with our help, went out into their own community and bothered to connect people to each other, bothered to ask, bothered to work on ideas that indicated there would be a future after the pandemic was over, and essentially embodied resilience. The real work of Forecast is to nurture and support artists to build the communities that they themselves want to be a part of. This project was an example of that, and I'm pleased to say that we won the 2021 Excellence in Community Award from the Minnesota chapter of the American Planning Association. Thank you.
To say this is a link to the website. We can see a project video and additional information. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I just want to quickly acknowledge that it's past 10 o'clock and we have a few more things to do. And I think that it's important that we give this work and these conversations time to happen and to breathe, and that we acknowledge all of the incredible voices and stories here. So we have one more video to share. And this is a project that Forecast engaged in right when the pandemic started. We started a partnership with Smart Growth America, Transportation for America, and they asked us to help them find artists around the country to work on urgent transportation-related pandemic issues, everything from resistance to mask wearing, to safety and distance. And so we connected an artist with a project in Atlanta, and I'd like to share that with you. And I'd also like to acknowledge that if you need to leave, please, we respect that you have other places to be, and we encourage you to consider a gift to Forecast. So thank you.
Well, in the perfect world, there wouldn't be homelessness. And I'm also an artist. I was working with this client, his name is Ivan. This guy had been homeless for 30 or 40 years. I took him to his moving day. I realized his life completely changed in 30 minutes and no one was around to see it. It felt like such a quiet thing, but it was quite powerful. And so I thought to myself, how is it that I can commemorate Ivan's story in a way that feels dignifying? And so I drew his portrait. turned into 6, then 7, which is a hobby to me. In the portraits, I have people who are currently experiencing homelessness. I have people who are currently working with a case manager. People who have recently moved into housing. It was also important for me to display someone who experienced homelessness a very long time ago and is now living a very actualized life. That person is Miss Queen, as a transgender woman. She is someone who experienced homelessness as a teenager, and she is now a helping professional working with trans individuals who experience homelessness.
I am Queen Hatcher-Johnson. We're in Forest Park, Georgia, and my lovely home that I never thought that I would have. Being a homeowner has been one of my biggest dreams, and now it's one of my greatest accomplishments, so I can check it off my bucket list. My story of homelessness started at the age of 16. There was a statement in the house one day, all the males in this house will dress as such. It was directed at me, and I made a conscious decision that I was gonna leave that home. There was no shelters for women of trans experience at that time. In my mind, I thought that, this is the life that I would have to live because of how I identify. But then I also knew in the crevices of my mind that I wanted more.
We live in a society where we're always constantly trying to solve homelessness. And people oftentimes say, well, the solution to homelessness is housing. And that is absolutely right. But people don't know the work that it takes to get someone there.
My name is Vincent Allen. I'm the lead case manager on the Modern Hope program. We address homelessness situations here in Atlanta, Georgia. I get in my office 30 minutes to an hour early every day. I breathe this. I have a love for people. I've never been homeless, but I lived in the world. I would honestly say that the homelessness situation in Atlanta, statistically wise, is probably high. And that's because this has become an international city. To ride MARTA, it's a safe haven. You can stay in your tent, you could stay in the woods, but to come onto MARTA, you feel comfortable, you feel safe. I'm getting on MARTA so I can get me some rest. That's where they are.
Homelessness has many faces.
Homelessness is so many things.
You have addiction, mental health, veteran issues.
Everyone's story, everyone's narrative is totally different.
Our goal is to help you get ahead and keep moving forward and not run into that situation again. What we do, we focus mainly on the end of the line stations. Most of your unsheltered individuals, they're on the train asleep. We wake them up and offer services. I don't just offer shelter, because anyone can go to a shelter. I'm thinking, let's get to a shelter, get out of the shelter, get in your own place, stand on your own feet, and stay not homeless. Sometimes it's just that little simple thing that could help someone in their homelessness situation. All they need is a hand. I try to keep in mind at all times, I'm one step away from being homeless.
I think something that people don't realize is how close to homelessness we all are.
Once you've experienced homelessness, hopelessness, it never leaves you.
We think we're all fine. We're fine now.
In the crevices of my brain, all of this could be gone if I don't pay the mortgage, if I don't pay the light bill, if I don't do this, if I don't do that.
So I would tell people, don't be so quick to judge, be quick to help. What if I were in your shoes?
We work with a population that is extremely invisible. Even though they're constantly visible to the public eye, they oftentimes don't feel seen. These portraits are going to be seen by a variety of people. The portraits have quotes from the subjects. They were all given the choice to express something that they wanted to say. I want wanted to show their humanity. And one of my hopes when doing these portraits was to be able to portray that.
If you find yourself homeless and you know that that's not you, keep pushing, keep evolving, keep transitioning.
For the city of Santa Fe, which is the ancestral home of the Tewa people and is still recognized as Oge Poge, White Shell Water Place. I'm so honored to be part of this incredible organization as a new board member and a donor and a big advocate for the work they do nationally. I've worked on staff of major cities, advocated for artists, and worked for racial equity my entire career. And as a person of color, it is very important that racial equity and sustainability continue, and that's the work that Forecast does. I can tell you most confidently that there's no other organization like Forecast in the country that is committed to the kind of change-making work. They're doing the work that's hard and meaningful to bring people together. They're bridging government with businesses, communities, and artists to ask the really hard questions that will change practices, that will help us move towards a better policy, to building trusting relationships, and work towards a more just, equitable, and joyful world. I hope you are inspired by the stories and images you saw today, and I'm asking you now to consider a financial gift to our work, the work of disrupting old systems of inequity and reimagining a new way of being together, honestly. And it takes resources, and a lot of them, not just financial, but staffing, and your support will help us continue to do the good work. Please consider Forecast. Please consider making a generous donation and whatever contribution you can today. I thank you for being with us, and I wish you a blessed day. Thank you.
Okay. You've heard about the incredible work Forecast has been doing here and around the country and the impact we will continue making. We need your support to make this work happen. Every gift truly makes a difference. There's lots of ways to give, and I'm going to go ahead. Should I skip ahead, Teresa, to those? Okay, great. There's a QR code on your table. You can scan that to make a gift online. There are pledge forms on your table, and you can fill those out. We accept gifts of stock. Let us know on the form if you'd like to make a stock gift or even a donor-advised fund. Keep in mind that many companies match charitable gifts. It's a great way to increase the impact of your generosity. And you can please just leave your completed pledge form right there on the registration table as you exit. You'll also get an email from us. There'll be a link in the email to donate. And have I covered all the ways? We'll take your money. You can hand it to me, and I will give it to Forecast, I promise, because I can't wait to see what the videos are next year. Thanks so much for being here.
Well, as we're passing these around, I just wanted to give one final thanks. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. Thanks for taking this time to support artists and their voices, to hear stories that are so often untold or even silenced, and to support this kind of work. So I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. I hope you enjoy each other. Please hang out, talk to us, talk to each other, use this time to socialize. We're back together. We get to see each other again. So thank you and enjoy your day.
Okay, hello. I have one quick thing to say. I have VR goggles. They're from Coyote Way going back home. We're actually going to be doing an official launch of that at Awamini this August. And so we have a VR piece associated with the short film, but I want to give 3 of these. I've got less than 100 left. So these are also collector items. I'm going to sign it. And so the top 3 donors, I'd love to give this to you. Thank you.